So, hello everyone, and thank you for coming to this session about delivering accessibility to your Lightning component. My name is Fabien Taillon. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and I'm the CTO of Texai, which is a French consulting company. French, as you can hear, hopefully. Here is my Twitter account, so if you want to contact me after, reach out to me for any question. Don't hesitate to reach to me on Twitter. So what is our goal today? So first of all, this is a developer session. This means that we will be showing some code. So it's not an admin one, just to you to know. And it's not a deep dive into accessibility. So I'm not an accessibility expert. Just I developing some Lightning components, and I discover some few stuff in my own journey where I could easily change some stuff in my components to make them accessible. So I just wanted to share with you a few first steps to make a non-accessible component one to an accessible one with only a few things to change. So if you're already an accessibility expert, maybe it's not for you too. It's really a first step. Yeah, not a deep dive, and I don't know if you've seen the dashboard builder in Lightning, which is super awesome. It's fully accessible. We are not doing this here. I don't even know everything about it, but if you are interested, look at it. It's super awesome. So first of all, what is accessibility actually? So there are lots of numbers out there, but first thing when you think about accessibility, it's something like, well, I don't know anyone that has accessibility issues. I'm not working with the blind people or whatever. So when I develop a project, I will start a component, and I will think maybe about UI, UX, responsiveness if it's supposed to be used on mobile. But we never think really about accessibility. But there are much more people affected than what you may think. So in the US, nearly 1 in 5 people have disabilities. So you can see some of the numbers about cloud blindness. We are pretty unlucky, us men here, 1 in 12 compared to 1 in 200 for women. And 13% of the people have hearing problems. So it's not just being blind, actually. So this is pretty interesting. So Microsoft has an accessibility team, and they did sort of PDF. You have the link right here, with this kind of picture. I find this is pretty interesting, actually, because, well, before when I was thinking about accessibility, I was like, yeah, so blind people. That's not just this. So, of course, there are the permanent disabilities, but there are also some kind of disabilities that could affect you, actually. So you can see here a few examples. So, well, a temporary one would be you break your arm, and it would be much more difficult to use your keyboard. So this is some of the disabilities, are only temporary, and it could be you. You are, let's say, outside. There is lots of sun on your screen. You can't really see what's on it. Maybe it could be useful to have a full keyboard accessible app, which is even better yet. So think as accessibility, not something for blind people, but for other disabilities, and also for you or for some of your colleagues in some situation. So this link is pretty useful. You will have lots of examples. And when I read it, I was like, oh, yeah. So actually, that's pretty useful to do it. So when we talk about accessibility, you may have heard about Aria. I don't know if you've heard about it. Anyone? A few of you? So, well, obviously, it's not this one. So it's another one. This one is maybe more famous. So what is Aria? Aria is standing for Accessible Rich Internet Application. So it's developed by W3C. So it's not like something you need a plugin or whatever. This is really a standard stuff. So this is built in browser. It's great for SPS, single-page applications, because when you have a basic page, it could be easy for a screen reader to understand what's on it. But when it's a single-page application and every div is moving all the time, hidden and everything, buttons are changing state, it could be more difficult for a screen reader to understand what's currently displayed on the screen if all the roles and everything are not set correctly. So the idea is to add role and states to HTML elements. So for instance, even if you have an input, it could be useful to add a role which says search, so that someone with a screen reader will be able to understand that it's not just an input and what else. And some state, for instance, you may have a button. If the button is grayed out, for you it will be obvious that it's not available. But with a state that says Aria disabled, someone with a screen reader will understand that this button, yes, is there, but is not available so far. Quickly, there is another thing which is WCAG, so it's Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. So, well, you need to understand that accessibility, there are some good reasons to do them, but also some legal reasons. So depending on the client and for who you will be developing your application, you may have actually to build accessibility inside your component. So, well, let's just do it. So there are several levels of compliance. And just for you to know, in the US, it's something else called Section 508, but it's almost the same thing. I mean, the idea is the same. Just if it's a legal point of view, we need to watch as the two. But the idea is the same behind that. So I will take an example here. So I've been a developer for Salesforce for a long time. And what I do most of the time is form. So it's custom form because for whatever reason, I can't use point-and-click stuff, but I will have an input field and buttons and stuff like that. So we don't have much time, so I created a really simple one. You see, it's pretty easy. 3 fields, 1 button. So this is what you will see. So you open the component. It looks pretty nice, pretty easy to understand. If you have a screen reader, this is what your screen reader will see. So as you can see, there are a few things that are missing. Just if you compare just one to another, it's pretty obvious that there are a few things missing. So let's fix it. So let's go to our code, which is not here yet. Here you go. Is that working? Yes, fine. So
accessibility options.
That's a little bit loud.
Use the tab key.
Should be okay like this. Okay. So
accessibility options.
Welcome to Mac OS Chrome, Aria window, first name title, edit text as keyboard.
Here you go. So here what I will do, I will be using VoiceOver, which is a screen reader that is built in macOS, but there are also tools for Windows, so don't worry. So what this VoiceOver will do is read your page and display information to your user. So there is some sound that you could hear. Also, it's displaying the same thing that is saying at the top right. So let's have a look to our component. So here is the first field. So what you can see is, okay, it's a first name. It's an edit text. It has focus. Okay, pretty nice. Going to the next one. If I the focus.
Edit text.
Now it's a little bit different. It's an edit text. Okay.
Edit text.
Okay, edit text, and then the button.
Button.
So we are going away. We are not even on the button here. We are on the button, but from Chrome. So the screen reader just saw correctly this field, which is the first name, and it displays the information and the fact that it's an input text. The two others, it's an input, but we don't know about what, and the button is not even selected and displayed with the screen reader. So this is pretty painful, actually. So what can we do to fix that? So let's copy-paste something somewhere. What is it?
Aria slide 9 of 22. Aria slide 9 of 22 slides. Menu. Let's fix it. Slides issue 1 slide okay. 16. Notes pane. Text. HTTPS go. Microsoft Power. Space with Chrome containing window Aria. Content. Web content. Lightning design system.
So
web content.
let's disable this for now.
Application.
So here is what I did. So I'm a developer. I'm lazy. The less I can do, I need to do, it's what I do. So here I want to create input. So what did I do? I went to the SLDS website. And that's pretty convenient because there are all of the examples here. And just below, there is some HTML attributes. I just can copy-paste them, put them inside my component, and it will render nicely. So that's pretty nice. That's what I did. If I look at my code, in here, you can see that this is exactly what I copy-pasted from SLDS. And well, I'm lazy, so I just copy-pasted it 3 times. The only thing I changed is first name, name, on title, which is what you can see on the form. So that's working, but as you can see, not for screen reader. Why? Well, because copy pasting is not really enough. There is a few things you need to change, which is super easy, but if you don't know them, you will never do them. So let's have a look. What you can see here is that there is a for attribute here. And this attribute is linked to the ID of the input. What is this? It's just to say, for instance, for screen reader, well, this label is not just text. It's the label of this specific field. So when you will go into this field, just display the according label, which is OK, except that, as you can see, as I copy-pasted everything, the IDs are the same everywhere. That means that all the fields are belonging to the same label. So VoiceOver will read the first one, then second one will just not read it, but it's like, oh, it's already the first one. So let's fix it very quickly. So I'll do it pretty dirty, but that's fine. I will replace with 2. And here, 3. Let's save it. And let's refresh that. OK, let's activate VoiceOver again.
Welcome to Mac Chrome. First name,
OK, here you go. So here you still have the first name, which is fine.
Name,
but then we have name and title. So now there is 3 fields. Before, only one was really available because there was no label for the 2 others. Now the 3 are working correctly. As you can see, if you need to use a screen reader, well, this is a huge difference because you know what these fields are doing now. But as a developer point of view, what did you do? Well, nothing. It's not like I need to have a look to ask for more money because it will take me 2 days more to add accessibility or whatever. It took you 2 seconds. 30 seconds maybe. So it's not that difficult. It's just if you know that you should do it, it will take you 2 minutes every time and you will have a super accessible app at no cost at all. So one thing to notice,
Lightning Design System, web context, application.
Disable that for now, is that under each component in SLDS, there is an accessibility section. So that means that if you need to use a component from SLDS, just have a quick look to that to be sure that you are changing what you need to change and not just copy-pasting stuff that shouldn't be copy-pasted. So that's fine, but we have still an issue because the button is still not there. So now the user will be able to use the 3 field, understand what's the purpose of this field, but he will still not be able to use the button. And first and second, he doesn't even know there is a button because it's not displayed with VoiceOver. So let's have a look to what is on the code now. So as you can see here, so it's this line. Well, again, I'm pretty lazy. So I've found that on SLDS, there is a super convenient class, which is SLDS button brand, that will give me a rounded shape with blue color, which is like a button. So I just created a div and put my CSS inside. So that's nice, but for a screen reader, there is no way for him to know that this specific div should be displayed to the user compared to this one, for instance. This one is just a div that is part of the HTML markup and has no sense, it shouldn't be displayed. So why the other should be? Screen reader doesn't know about it, and so it doesn't display anything. So we have several options to fix here. So one of the things, the most obvious, is to use the button class. So it's the last line. Well, if you need to display a button, just use the button class. There are some HTML attributes that are standard, and they are all supported by any browser and screen reader. So if you need to do a button, use the button attribute, HTML attribute. And this will perfectly work. There is another option, because sometimes, let's say you are doing some heavy custom design with CSS and whatever, and you can't really use a button or even a standard attribute, like for a pick list or whatever. And, well, it will be only custom on JavaScript, on divs and whatever, but still it should display to the end user as something he already knows. So in this case, that's where Aria comes in, and you will be able to do something like this. So I can keep my div and use a role. So I will say, OK, it's a div, but the role is a button, so use it and display it as a button. Second thing is tab index, just to be sure that when I use the tab and keyboard, it will stop on this element. So let's try to fix it. So I'll use the button directly. Okay, save that. Let's refresh. Activate voiceover again.
Welcome to Mac
Okay, we
OS.
are.
First name, edit
So
text,
I forgot to remove the other one.
edit text, blank.
Let's do it quickly. Oops.
Space with phone content, first Aria web content.
Okay.
First name, edit text.
So first name still working,
Name, edit
name
text.
working,
Edit
title
text.
working,
Create contact.
create contact button. So now it's fully working for anyone, either you that can see your screen perfectly, or someone with a screen reader, for instance. And it's fully accessible through keyboard, which is pretty cool also, because I like to use my app with keyboard. So what you've seen here is that, what did I do? If I go back to the code,
Edit
I,
text, blank.
okay, let's remove that.
Voiceover off.
I changed four inputs, 4 IDs, took me 30 seconds. Change a div to a button, took me 10 seconds. So let's say in a minute, I switched from a non-accessible Lightning component, not accessible at all, to a component that is fully accessible. So the idea here is not to say here is how to create complex stuff, but just for you creating simple application, just think about these things, and you will change your component to a super accessible component at almost no cost, actually. So let's go back to the slides. It's working. Okay. Okay, so very quickly, how to test it. There are lots of tools. So VoiceOver is built in on Mac. There is accessibility tools in Chrome. NVDA is a screen reader for Windows because there is nothing built in. A few best practices. So first thing is, I use this LDS now, but if you are doing some simple form like this, use Lightning-based component. Lightning-based components are built-in components developed by Salesforce, and there are accessibility tags inside of them. You will get some warning if you don't set the accessibility tags. So first thing, if the component already exists, don't recreate it yourself. Use the one from Salesforce, it's fully accessible. Second, if you can, use SLDS using the accessibility section to be sure you won't be copy-pasting something that is just not working. Use tag with meaning, which is, as I did before, if you create a button, just use the button tag and it will work out of the box. Set label and ID, Aria tags with roles. Images, you can use the alt attribute. So if you want to display information to your user about the image, put the description into the alt. Only if the image makes sense. If it's just decorative, you don't need to. For fonts, it's better to use Aria instead of Pixel, because if someone wants to display the screen bigger, everything will adapt automatically. So it's like percentage sort of. Color ratio, to be sure that text is really visible to guys with color blindness. And don't use only way to convey your message, which is if I have a button which is visible, just don't use a gray color. Just add Aria tags, for instance, to be sure that someone that don't see colors, well, you will see the difference between a blue button and a gray button. So Aria tags, for instance, is a good way to do it. Okay, what I did, I don't know if you guys have heard about Salesforce DX, I guess yes. One of the cool stuff about Salesforce DX, there is something that is called deploy to SFDX. So I put my whole code in GitHub. So if you want to have a look to this component, I have two, not accessible one, so you can try and compare. You can just go to my repo. If you have SFDX already, click on deploy to SFDX, and it will just create a scratch org that you can use immediately. And that's it, guys. Thanks.